all, Geordie can say whatever he wants to say for however long he wants. Some people don't even want to say more than 1 minute, and yesterday Evelyn Rothschild spoke for half an hour, and then I exercise my prerogative of asking a couple of questions, and then I want to encourage all of you to ask him questions with the one proviso. There's got to be an intelligent question, otherwise you'll be slapped down. There were a couple of stupid questions which I had to slap down yesterday, so it is. But I'm sure that they will be intelligent. So, Geordie, you're going to introduce a man with 500 lovers to China, which is all music to my ears.
First, I'd like to clarify the notice which announces me introducing the man with 500 lovers is not me. The man is...
You've got 600.
The man is Lucian Freud, and I wrote a book about Lucian Freud, which is about to be published in China. They're just finishing the last translation details of it. And it's also being translated for Taiwan as well. The book is really the result of an obsession of mine. Age 17, when I was a schoolboy, I came up to London, not very far from here. I was taken to a small room in Piccadilly. In that room were 17 paintings. Of those paintings, almost all of them were anonymous. They were described as the big man, or girl, or naked man with rat. I was completely mesmerized by this exhibition. I'd never seen anything so psychologically strange, so edgy, so compulsive, and with so many questions being asked, with no answers given. Lucian Freud never appeared at that show. He was a mystery in London, in that he was actually very gregarious and quite social, but he was also quite scary. When I was a reporter on the Sunday Times many years later, when a colleague of mine was threatening or offering to write about him, some East End thugs came round and suggested that he was not to be written about. The only previous biographical work on him, Lucian stopped it being published and paid off the author a six-figure sum to stop the book being published. Age 17, I knew none of this. So I wrote to him, "Dear Mr. Freud, can I come and interview you?" No reply. I wrote to him regularly for the next 27 years. And for the next 27 years, I had no reply. Persistent or insane, I kept an idea that he was the most intriguing, fascinating artist of his generation. I wrote to Francis Bacon, his contemporary, a little bit older, and got to see him, thinking this was a way to Lucian. I interviewed David Hockney, I interviewed a whole bunch of people. Always, Lucian never replied. Eventually, I decided that there was only one way to get him to reply. And I had my last chance, sent him a postcard. I just said, "I've got a brilliant idea, but you have to hear it." He called and said, "Do you want to come for breakfast?" And that was the moment when I knew I had him in. There had been one slight conversation beforehand when I had sent him a book by the painter Stanley Spencer. I don't know if you all know his works, but they're again very nakedly naked, very remarkable, very noticeable. And I thought I was being clever. I was the literary editor of the Sunday Times. I sent him this book. I said, "I think you might want to review this book for me, as it's interesting." I didn't say. A week later, the telephone went to my office in the Sunday Times. And my deputy knew I was obsessed by Lucian Freud, said, Lucian Freud is on the phone. And I said, and I am the Pope, please can you ask him to call back? She went, it really is Lucian Freud, I think, or it's a hoax. Down the telephone came this blast of 1930s Berlin. It was Lucian. There was an accent. It was as if we were suddenly drifting back to the worlds of Cyril Connolly, Stephen Spender. It was the 30s intonation. It was that feel of small, cultured elite, which is completely gone today. And he said, I hope you realise I have absolutely nothing in common with Stanley Spencer. Of course, I lied badly, but said, of course, I just wondered if you wanted to write about it. He said, I will call you back. Call back, he just said no. Then I wrote my final postcard. So there we are, at 7:30 in the morning. I go around to the studio in Hong Kong, ring the bell, top bell, go up the stairs, and there, in the doorway, is like a figure from a rehearsal for a Samuel Beckett play. Butcher's trousers, silk shirt crumpled, slight stubble, and these eyes. The eyes are the most intense eyes I've ever experienced. They were like an eagle's eyes. I felt like a very small mouse about to be devoured. But I was in. Through that door, I was in Freudland. All of you who know these pictures, the mattress on the iron bedstead, the bare floorboards, the slightly bohemian chaos, the jars of caviar left sort of on the kitchen, the old plates. He said, come in, would you like some breakfast? So we had half a bottle of Burgundy and a partridge. Left over from last night's dinner. And he then said, well, what's your idea? This was the ultimate Hollywood pitch. I knew I had only this moment. So I said, well, you don't want to be interviewed, do you? He said, no. And you don't want to be photographed, do you? No. Felt my room, the movement was getting smaller and smaller as the minutes racking up. He had a friend called Frank Auerbach, fellow emigre who'd come from Germany to escape the Holocaust. And he used to have breakfast with him every day. And Frank Auerbach was going to retrospective at the Tate in October. Was his best friend. And I said to Lucian, I want to photograph Frank Auerbach. And you can be in the picture too. And he went, okay. So again, breakfast. This time, a Cock Tavern in the meatpacking district of London. 6:15 in the morning, where we photographed him, and him and Frank having a cup of tea. On the way back, he offered me a lift. Brown Bentley, lunatic driver. Red lights didn't exist. We seemed to go on 3 wheels. Every sign seemed to be ignored. But that wasn't the main nugget of my interest. It was his conversation. How he knew Ian Fleming back in the 50s, staying with him in Jamaica. Ian was convinced I was having an affair with his wife. I wasn't, he told me. So he swirled around Hyde Park Corner. We went back to the era of order. He knew the secretaries in Encounter magazine, the ultimate literary magazine, where he used to have his first pictures exhibited in essence, because that's where they were printed. Me. Now, Lucian never, ever gave anyone his telephone number. Most of his children did not have it, some did, very, very few. I think his assistant had it, but that was about it. He would call at the oddest hours, 3 a.m. Hi, sorry to call you. Do you know the election result? I just thought you would be someone who would know what was going on. So we would talk for a couple of hours. So my eyes actually fell heavier and heavier. But they were kept mostly alert and alive, open, because he probably was the most riveting, charismatic man. Let me wind back to why the fascination started. He, in my view, reinvented the language of painting. If you think, at that time, there were two great masters. There was the Grand Maître, Francis Bacon, and there was the Petit Maître, Lucian Freud. Lucian's early pictures were of this still surface, very generic, or the always of mind, German influence. And he was always aware that Bacon had the first big Paris show, a tape retrospective, the bigger prices. These were the talismanic, baroque, huge expressions of our time, the angst of our time. Lucian seemed quite domesticated. He forced himself to change gear. He forced himself to go from these very still pictures to the first news, to these sort of post-coital news, which were overwhelmingly shocking at the time. They were girls with their legs sprayed open. They were boys absolutely naked with their genitals, fully in your vision. He next moved to almost kind of Alaska-like baroque with the Australian huge mound of flesh in the environment, which put him on the same trajectory, the same sense of breaking through barriers, breaking into the American market that Freud virtually did. But back to the title of this talk, Introducing a Man with 500 Lovers. Lucian was set on a stick. No one else could walk into a room, capture in a moment the essence of complete attraction, the ability to make particularly vulnerable women do things they wouldn't normally do. And he was, some described him as a man without ethics. What he did have was a work ethic. He was perpetually frantic about scraping together time in order to make a difference. In order to do that, he would sometimes have 3 models altogether, a night model, a day model, and someone in between. Often, these turned into relationships. He made no secret of the fact that he was not going to be faithful. He was married twice, and almost immediately, from day one, he was unfaithful. Each time this happened, the women who were thinking they were with him at that stage were generally surprised. Often, one of the models told me she was posing him in the studio and she saw a canvas leaning against the wall with a breast painted on it, not her breast. So he knew someone else would come in. She eventually moved out. There were 3 constant women in his life who remained for almost 40 to 50 years, 50 at the most, coming in and out and being devoted to him. On the whole, there was an unstoppable sense of sex in painting. In 1963, he had 3 different children by 3 different women. He probably had, definitely had, 14 acknowledged children. There were probably another 20 to 25 others unacknowledged. He did it as a hunger to explore what he felt, and he wrote about this twice. He only wrote 2 articles in his life. artist had complete capacity to own what was being wanted. They had complete, utter control over what was being wanted. And he wrote an essay for Encounter called Some Thoughts on Painting in 1954. He wrote one other article. He wrote it for me in 2004, 50 years later. More thoughts on painting. It was less than 100 words long. It left out, as he claimed, the one thing which he hadn't mentioned in the earlier article. Paint, he wrote in capitals, which was the most important thing in his life. He was racing against time to create an immortal sense of the work, which would change our view. In doing so, there were an enormous amount of people who were wreckage as a result. To some extent, that was the children. I remember in my book, Breakfast with Lucian, his eldest daughter, gave me two extraordinary anecdotes. One, when she was 14, painted her naked. It was his first female nude. And she remembered, in taking the paintbrush, to a girl on, and just draws her hair away from her body so that you can see her nails. She describes this. Her mother, who was the daughter of the sculptor Geordie Greig, who had his own moving social and sexual barriers, wrote to Lucian saying, you can't do this to our daughter. And Lucian just saw how bourgeois you get to complain about what's a natural thing for an artist to do. The second anecdote was when Annie was 24. She went out to dinner with her father. There were two other people at dinner. Annie said, hi. Remember, she's 24. Hi, we're your brother and sister. The decompartmentalization of his life was supremely about what he always called the most important thing in his life, privacy. He once told me if he got a car to go to the cinema, he would then get a taxi to go to another cinema so that the original driver didn't know where he would be. There was an obsession about people not knowing, but yet how ironic that an artist puts the most private descriptions, vocations, exhibitions of his inner life between the canvas, between the frame. It goes on a public wall. For the last 10 years of his life, we used to have breakfast. And I recorded, fully aware to him, the conversation. We did a couple or so articles in magazines. But essentially, after he died, I decided to turn him into a book. And because those around him knew that I knew him, people opened up. So this book is a key to opening up the anonymity, the questions, giving the answers to what I saw, age 17, wondering, who is Big Man? Big Man actually was a bookie. When Lucian was changing his dealers, because he always changed deeds very regularly, because they couldn't quite keep up with him, the demands for money to pay gambling debts, the women turning up and saying, where's Lucian? And not knowing. When the American dealer, his final dealer, Bill Amberell, turned up to meet him, thinking, I don't want to take this man on, he went to the studio and realised that those last images, the last 10 years of his life, were going to be the pictures which transformed, utterly changed British art market of Freud. As some of you would have seen, the picture last month went for 35 million. Cash up front for the pictures. He didn't care about commissions, he just wanted cash up front, big sum, so he could sort out the front. They shook hands and he said, I will become your dealer. But he said, just a small thing if you could do for me. And the dealer said, what is it? Would you have lunch with my maker? it's a small problem. If you could sort it out, it would be fantastic. So he had lunch with the big man, the bookmaker. And the bookmaker went to Wilton, so that's a very grand, smart lunch. And he's Northern Irish. And he said, did Lucian mention there was a small thing to sort out? He said, yeah, I did that. I'd be very happy to do it. The dealer thought, I bet Lucian knows some money. It is 100k. It's probably worth it. Lucian owes me £2.7 million, which he paid. Good money spent. It's the price of Freud as rocketed. There's a small picture this big, which Lucian made for Deborah, Duchess of Devonshire. It's just some eggs. She used to bring eggs from her estate in Chinatown, Derbyshire. He then painted the Geordie Greig as a Christmas. It's got a very low price. David's agreed to buy this picture for me for giving this talk. I think I've got witnesses. It is a low estimate of 150 to 200,000 pounds. It's this big. It's a body. There is a sense of a life lived on the edge of every fulfillment you can do, except the one thing he never did was domesticity in any sense. He never ever lived with any of his children. He may have tattooed Kate Moss in the back of the taxi. He may have painted the Queen of Buckingham at the stable block at St James's Palace. He may have created images which will, I think, last for centuries to come. But there was always focus, determination. He had a 24-hour key to the National Gallery, given by the National Gallery. So you used to go late at night, take a model, take a lumber, take a friend. And I always thought he wasn't going there for inspiration. He was going there to look at the competition, to knock out the competition. So he was competing with Rembrandt, with Titian, with Van Gogh, all whose works he took, and often gained inspiration and sometimes a direct pattern or similar theme. So that was my obsession. And he died 2011. My book came out 2 years ago, and it sold just recently in China, it was selling in Korea, it was selling in Japan. Film rights have just been bought by Harvey Weinstein. So it's been an incredible journey, which began for me as that rather ingenue, obsessed teenager. You've got to remember, when I was 17, it was the era of punk. For me, Lucian seemed more anarchic, more dangerous, more serious, as well as more completely inexplicable, as someone can let their absolute desire ride over everything else. In between that, he did probably have $500. So it was an extraordinary life, which I hope one day somebody may enjoy my book.
I mean, I had the privilege of being shown by David Hockney the sketchbook that he's made of all the sittings he had had with Lucian, because I think they agreed with each other that they would sketch the other person's master work. And so Hockney used to go off to sit and watch and paint and sketch Lucian. And Lucian would go to watch Hockney paint and sketch him. I, of course, never saw the sketchbook of Lucian, but I was shown by David Hockney the one that he had done on Lucian Freud. I don't know whether you've seen it, but it is absolutely remarkable. I mean, it's not the work of Lucian, but the detail, the atmosphere of all that.
But it was a very one-sided equation, because David sat for Lucian for probably about 40 or 50 hours, and Lucian sat for David for about an hour and a half, because Lucian was remorsefully selfish and was older, and actually fell asleep during some of the sittings.
Did he make any sketches of?
No, he did very few. Most of the preparation was on campus.
So, I mean, do you think Hogg publishes the booklet?
Probably, he publishes most of
I
them.
mean, it was sketchful, actually.
Yeah.
It's absolutely remarkable. But that's another subject. But my last question is, do you think Lucian would have approved the book? Would he have even read it? I mean, if he was alive when it was published, what do you think would happen? I mean, would you have rung him up and said, by the way, Lucian, I've written a book about you? Or rather, the question is, why did you not do the book whilst he was alive?
I think he wouldn't have wanted to do the book. Brian Sewell, the author of the exam, has a theory that he realised what I was doing. And often great artists or writers quite like the sense that someone younger than them is going to continue to pass on the baton of what they've learned from them. There's a sort of amanuensis element to it.
I mean, did it ever occur to you that you should have written the book without telling him and published it during his lifetime without telling him?
Well,
I mean, of course he will find out. But it would be extraordinary if he says, I mean, he wouldn't have reacted normally, like a normal person said, Geordie, what do you mean you publish a book about me? I never told you. That would have been a very bourgeois outcry. And it would have fascinated me to have known how he would have reacted if you simply had published his book whilst he was still alive, without telling him.
I think he knew what I was doing, for the simple reason that at almost every breakfast I would plonk the tape recorder down and would take the conversation.
Was it because you were scared that you might have produced a work that you might not have liked for his own?
I don't think I had actually come to the conclusion that I was definitely writing a book. I was more, I'd done these things for newspaper, magazine things, and I'd always shown him what I'd done, and he was fine. I mean, the most extraordinary personal details he didn't mind at all.
All right, well look, now it's your chance. Who's got a question?
Yes.
Now that he died and the book came out about his evolution, the mystery about him is gone.
Has the mystery gone?
Yeah.
Well, lots of questions are answered by people who wanted to know what were the central characters who went round this major planet called Lucian. So it does leave many identities brought forward. People are incredibly open. I mean, he's so open, or some of his colleagues are so open, friends, that Julian Barnes, the novelist, thought my book would sink his reputation for a generation because of his sexual revelations. I think that was placing too much emphasis on my book. It's frequency, but it does. I thought I had a license to be as candid as I needed to be, and I only withheld one fact because it would have toppled over the whole book, and I'm not going to tell you what that is.
What is that?
Sorry, the line's gone a bit funny.
Come to breakfast with me tomorrow. Yes.
Hi. Did you ever worry that he was manipulating you as such to paint the picture that he wanted to, if he thought he knew you were going to do a book?
Do you know, I didn't, because the thing about Lucian was he never did anything he didn't want to do. And I felt I could ask him anything, and pretty much did. And we knew each other for a certain amount of time, so sometimes I'd ask the same question again, and it might be a slightly varied or the same answer. And I didn't think he was playing that sort of short-term game. I mean, there were certain things he would not want to talk about, like when his second wife had a child. Caroline Blackwood was his second wife, and she married the three muses in life. She married paint, Lucian. She married music, a man called Sikovitz, a Polish composer, and she married the great American poet Robert Lowell. One of her children by Lowell, the youngest, Lucian had an affair with when she was a late teenager, young late teenager, and she died of overdose. To have an affair with your ex-wife's teenage child is quite hot and heavy, but it must be. So there was an element of he did not like, particularly Caroline's children, when we spoke about it. I always wondered if it was connected to the rather shocking engagement he had with Natalia.